Wassail.
No, you've got a whole
Scott's not
end
happy.
tag to do. You got a whole end tag.
But it doesn't make sense that the end tag is like the end. Surely that's like the bit that you do after the. Like, that's a terrible sign off. It's like a really dull, long. Surely you do like a goodbye, and then the music, and then you kind of like, and then the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Don't you think?
Okay.
Scott,
Ooh.
please keep this. Keep this.
Yeah.
I want this.
All right.
Listeners can hear what we actually have to go through.
That's just like my opinion, man.
All right. So what do you want to do? Do you want to read this separately and you want me to play this over the outro music?
Yeah, I was just gonna just do like a sort of and goodbye, and then so the outro music sort of comes and then it fades a bit, and then if you enjoy the podcast and want to help, sort of like it's like the credits at the end rather than the actual end of the show. Does that make sense?
Okay. So you want to produce the show now?
Oh, I was waiting for it.
Biatch. I love it. To another splendid episode of the Neutral Cider Hotel podcast. My name is Gabe Cook and I'm the ciderologist and I love Tara Masalata. Coming up on the show, we have got the award-winning and generally fabulous observational comic Ed Byrne joining us to talk about his latest show, Tragedy Plus Time. We'll also be dissecting a pretty chunky news story which has hit the UK, cider community anyway, over the last few weeks, before finally checking in on the speak pipes to hear what the listeners have to say. But joining me, as always, are Martin Goodwin Shawama and Giros Hutchison, and of course, not forgetting producer Spanner Copita. Hooray! Welcome everyone to the show. Can you guess where I came back from holiday last night?
Ireland.
Oh, I was going to say Belgium. Because of the chips.
Of course, it was Greece. I went on to the island of Zakynthos, where we've got a bit of well, I say heat wave in the UK. It's all relative, 25, 26 degrees Celsius. It was 37 degrees centigrade 2 days ago. So this is a bit nippy out here today. So it's all relative. But yeah, we managed to squeeze a little holiday and check us out. My first time to Greece. Very nice.
So this wasn't cider related.
No, this was very much holiday. I had some nice lager beer, local lager beer. There was only Kopparberg and other assorted. Yeah, not many apples grow on Zakynthos. I can tell you that. A little bit too toasty. They grow lots of olives, and they do make some local wine, and they're growing grapes for raisins, and I can understand why, because I've turned into a bit of a raisin, if that makes sense. Anyway, moving on.
Anyway.
Did you write that joke down? Is that a pre-rehearsed joke?
I did. I do know. I did actually. Got a few notes.
Lads are going to laugh at the raisin.
Martin, since we last conversed, how has your week been, my friend?
Well, speaking of raisins, I've popped a bottle of In Touch for the returning.
Ooh.
So yeah, really, really pleased. But
wow.
So I've been drinking that today and making notes, which took all of 5 minutes. But
hang on, can we have a reminder of exactly for the legions of new listeners to the show, exactly what is In Touch and what is this next iteration?
You tell me people don't know about this.
Well, some Philistines have been living under a rock for the last 3 years. I don't know. Just, want to give them a chance. Yeah.
Okay. So I popped down in lockdown to Pilton in Somerset and blended a cider, and it's turned into a kind of annual thing. So I was given free rein, and the thing that excited me the most in there was this kind of wild bone dry, super tannic barrel of funky craziness. And Martin was like, "Oh, that's grape skins, cider aged on grape skins." And I was like, "Yes." So we've just kind of done a rolling thing with different varieties, different amounts, and different blends. And this one is basically, I thought the last one was Lambrusco-y. This is just like big old cherry red fruit madness in like Pinot tannin. It's pretty drinkable.
I actually had a bottle today as well.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, both our daughters decided to scream for 15 minutes non-stop. So Jay was like, "Is that bottle in the fridge? Can I open that?" So we opened it, and I've loved every In Touch, but I don't know, it was just because it was the first one, but the first one was outstanding, and I'm glad to see a return of the Pinot grapes. And this one, it's intense, like peppery, plummy, nice, really beautiful. I was going to ask about the tissue paper though. Why didn't you wrap it in tissue paper and reveal it? Unsheath that beast.
I think that was born out of lockdown and Martin wanting events, and I think the amount of bottles that he's made has like grown exponentially. So if you were to wrap them, I think it was, I'm sure for him, the admin of it, but it is one as well where it was like label wise, he was like, "You got any ideas?" And I was like, "Here's some rocks. Here's just some picture of rocks." Nice. And he'd coloured it to match it. But I was like, it was from our holiday in Ilfracombe. And it was lovely, but no poem. It's evolved over time and become different things. But like for me, I think number 2, which was the Bacchus, which seems no one else likes, but I'm like, that is my favourite thing I've ever done. This weird kind of green herby thing. I love it, but people want fruit apparently, so give the people fruit.
Number 2 was a beautiful drink. I think just that you're right that it was following. It was the difficult second album, wasn't it? Because the first one was just such a big hit, and the kind of ease and accessibility of the spicy, intense red fruit, red berries just is probably pleasing to maybe a slightly greater number of people. I don't know. Do you reckon you'll ever go back and do another iteration that isn't the sort of Pinot based?
I mean, it's down to what Martin gets, but listeners will be able to hear the colour of it is super, super deep. But the white grapes didn't impart an orangey tone at all. It just looked like a weird kind of, it's kind of like when Mr. Burns is an alien ghost. It had that kind of vibe of like this weird washed out tone.
Glow. Was it not Jonah Gold as well?
It had Jonah Gold in it to brighten it up. So
right.
So like in this one, there's Falstaff Bramley as like a acidic kind of match to soften the kind of softer Kiev stuff. But yeah, there's always some kind of dessert variety in there, but higher on that one and like brighter white wine kind of inspired. But different strokes for different folks. But yeah, there you go. I'm pleased with it, and it's out there, and you can check it out now.
Able.co.uk available.
Oh, I thought we weren't doing gratuitous plugs anymore.
Oh, no, we're not. We're not using sound effects with the gratuitous plugs. I thought that was the discussion.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks. That is actually
we're maturing.
That is technically correct. Grant, are you sat in the Able Cider Shop right now?
I am. That's where I currently broadcast from.
Right.
Because we're not staying at home. I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but we're still out of the house getting a kitchen put in. So
this must be the biggest, most extravagant 3-story kitchen. I mean, I want photos when it's done. In 3 years' time.
No copper.
Yes, the lead pipes really is what is. That's what's put not a spanner but a lead pipe in the works. So that's the reason for the delay.
And obviously, as you'll remember from last show, that the Devonshire colic of the lead poisoning is, so
dangerous.
Take your time.
I will.
Don't bring up that quiz ever again.
I might just do it from here anyway, because I mean I've not got it's not an infinite amount of alcohol, but for a 2.5 hour recording, it's pretty close to that amount. So
yeah, you are in the pick and mix. Like you can go, oh, I feel like now we're talking about tannic stuff. There's a bottle here for
I
that.
could right now go and open 2 bottles of In Touch and put them both in my mouth if I wanted. And drink
With a
them.
mega blend.
And you can too, listener, if you go to able.co.uk.
So yes, I am currently in Able. It's a beautiful space to be recording a podcast about cider.
Grant, what's been happening with you this last week? Anything interesting? Are you still recovering from birthday shenanigans?
No, I mean, it took about a week, but I'm there now, I think. Sunday I went to see Bluey, the live show. So I don't know if you as parents are familiar with said dog, the Australian animated dog.
Bluey. Oh, I love a bit of Bluey.
You're maybe a bit early, Martin, but give it time.
Yeah, we're doing no screens at the moment.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
You wait. I know it's going to happen. So.
Well, Bluey's a good one as well. Like, I mean, it's for the parents as much as it's for the kids.
It's true.
I have cried at several episodes of Bluey.
Oh.
So I took Sula to that because last time Bluey was in town, I was on tour with The Cure. Did I mention that? Or,
You did.
Okay.
Yeah, we chatted about that for an hour.
Do you remember much from last time?
So I didn't get to go. So as soon as the shows were announced, it was right on there.
Oh, yes.
Sula and I did that, and then had a lovely day in Edinburgh. I mean, again, you mentioned the heat wave, Gabe.
Yeah.
And jokingly mentioned 25, 26 in England. We were tickling 20. And the taps come off. Sorry, I should say.
Taps off.
Dude, I had taps off here on my computer today. I was like, I don't care. I just sat there.
Yes.
Like this little cider belly. Just
Were you on a Zoom call at the time or just tapping away?
No, OnlyFans, just performing.
I did think there was somebody that looked remarkably like you from the neck down, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to,
Gabe,
didn't want to judge.
Move on and ask Scott what he's up to.
Producer Spanakopiter, what's happening in San Diego, my friend? Keep it moving.
Oh my gosh. I don't have a lot to report. I'm just training for my backpacking trip. So I did a hike late last week. It started in the low 20s, and by the end of it was in the low 30s, and I was really hot. It was not quite as I'd
low 30s for us or for you?
It was freezing here in the summertime. No, for you guys. Yeah, it was up into the high 80s or low 90s here when I got done with my hike, and I was definitely feeling it. So, and actually, sadly, they just yesterday found a hiker that had passed away from hiking up here from the heat this weekend. I didn't go this weekend because it was so hot. So there we go. Happy times.
Oh, right. Yeah. Happy Scott.
As we matured, we decided to end every story with death.
Okay. All right, everyone. That's enough for our little preamble at the top. Let's get in to see what's happening in the news. This episode of the Neutral Cider Hotel podcast is sponsored by The Cat in the Glass, our fantastic friend Nikki Kong. This is an online bottle shop and home to some of the best drinks around. Grant, Martin, what's your experience of The Cat in the Glass?
Do you know what? Ignoring the fact that they have saved our asses on multiple times when we've bought ciders for the pod, it's a case of a massive library of multiple vintages of multiple cider makers that we love. So it's a huge range, well curated, always accessible, easy website. You can separate between beer and cider, but for me personally, I'm always selecting cider, and I'm always going to most popular in the settings and picking out what looks good, what I've heard about, and also it's a good resource to find stuff that's actually off my radar. So there's a lot going on at Cat in the Glass.
I love the fact they host the Manchester Cider Club second Thursday of every month. I think, I sort of attended a few remotely during lockdown, but now that we're back to normal, I haven't made it. But it's a great way to meet like-minded cider fans. Again, like Martin said, discover new bottles, either by brand new makers or by existing makers that I know they're always, alongside Dick and Kath, who help run it, they always bring out great makers, great bottles, and it's a lot of fun. So
there you go. An amazing selection of ciders from the UK and international too, with quite a strong emphasis on organic and low intervention cider and perry. And the best thing is, if you order before 12 p.m, it is next day UK wide, probably not including the Highlands, sorry Grant, courier deliveries Monday to Thursdays. So make sure that you head to www.thecatintheglass.co.uk for all of your fantastic cider orders. Cheers for sponsoring this episode. And now it's time for the news. But since we aren't recording as frequently these episodes, rather than doing a sort of catch up on bits and bobs that have happened every single week, we thought that we'd focus this time on a particularly big topic which arose in UK cider news and community and actually broke through into mainstream media as well a few weeks back. And it's a story about an orchard, a big orchard, 300 acres worth of orchards belonging to Heineken, the parent company of Bulmers. That's HP Bulmer Limited, the business, the world's largest cider making company based here in Hereford. In fact, where I'm sat at my mum and dad's house, about 200 meters away. And the story is that these 300 acres of tannic apples were taken out of the ground. They were pilloried and castigated against for this sort of wanton destruction of a vital environment for flora and fauna and invertebrates, because orchards are amazing environments. What they would say, of course, is that there is actually a reduced demand for ciders that contain high levels of tannin, and so they've just responded to that sort of consumer demand. But it certainly provoked and elicited a lot of noise and a lot of comment amongst cider community and kind of more broadly. So we thought that we'd have a natter about this. I've got some insights and takes on it because I've had the opportunity to work for Heineken in the past, and kind of I've got a decent idea, I think, of sort of how and why. But I think that what we could all agree on is the fact that it's quite a shocking sight to see. The term is to grub up an apple tree. Even that's quite sort of dirty and emotive, like just grub the tree out of the ground. And yeah, to see these rows and rows and rows of trees that have been sort of ploughed up basically and sort of lying on their side was somewhat sad. So yeah, it was quite a big thing. So yeah. I don't know what anyone else's take on it is.
Well, just on the scale of that, if you look at it, horribly remove emotion, but if you look at it from Heineken's point of view, and they must have weighed up the PR that would have come out of it and the images and gone, that's fair enough. We'll take that on the chin because it's cheaper for us to dig these. For me, I don't get it. I really don't get it. I find it so weird. And I think this whole discussion of like changing consumer tastes, it's like you are that seems like the tail wagging the dog to me. It's like, and I can't imagine the amount of apples that would have been there, the amount of people that you would have employed to pick them, or like machine pick them and then press them, how much of their overall output in a year would that have been kind of affected by tannin? Do you know what I mean? It's not, that doesn't mean all their ciders are going to be like 100% tannic varieties, does it? I think it's kind of, I find it confusing.
Yeah, I mean, so what was the reasoning for, because they're selling it, right? So they're selling the land. So why was it necessary to rip it up before selling it? Did they try to sell it as an orchard, and there was no interest in it?
Without knowing the absolute answer to that question, they might have tried to sell the land with the trees, but knowing the market as it is, and that it's not just Heineken who are seeing a demand for more tannin intense ciders decrease. It's other cider makers too, and I can guarantee that there would be nobody who would want to have purchased 300 years of fairly mature bush orchards, which if you averaged at 20 tons an acre, that's 6,000 tons worth of apples coming from that orchard every single year. The thing that this isn't a new thing, by the way, that there's been a massive reduction in the amount of bittersweet fruit that Heineken have been using over the course of the last sort of 6, 7, 8 years. They've probably reduced it from about 150,000 tons down to about 100,000 tons of fruit that they're processing in Herefordshire, which they turn into concentrate on site in Ledbury and Herefordshire, and then use that throughout the year to make the cider. So this isn't a new thing, but what they've got a number of farms which are their own farms. There are 8 sort of company farms, and this one, Penrose, was one of them. Back in the late 90s, when Bulmer's a finance director was doing some slightly dodgy things, and in order to cover his tracks, he sold 6 of the orchards that they owned, but got the use of the orchards back on 99-year leases. This is like 25, sort of 30 years ago. So they only actually own 2 orchards, Penrose being one of them. And so what they've decided to, and in addition to the orchards that they own, they also then contract the majority of the apples that they use are contracted to local farmers on 25-year contracts. So I think what they've done is they've taken the decision that there's a decrease for tannin, and we can come on to exactly sort of how and why, but there's a decrease in use of tannin. They would rather sell the orchard that they own and offload that rather than having to cancel more contracts. I think that was kind of their thinking. It's also the orchard that's the furthest away from the apple mill. It's like 40 miles away. You know, that's a lot of cost of fuel and things to take it all the way to the eastern part of the county. Penrose is not even in England. It's in Wales. It's over the border. So it's quite a chunky thing. But in terms of how and why is there a reduction in demand? You're absolutely right, Martin. It has been driven by the cider makers themselves. So it is a slightly self-fulfilling prophecy that let's push ciders that are softer, juicy, and easy to drink. And guess what? That is utilizing apples which we don't really grow so much of in the UK, and certainly not in the heartland areas of the western and southwest of the UK. So it's definitely a degree that this is sort of self-made. But I personally don't buy the fact that Heineken are evil as a result of doing that. I think it's more of a case of, it's a more sort of complex supply and demand type issue.
Oh, it's always going to be more complex than it seems, and it's just very easy to look at it and go, that seems really bad, and that's valid as well. And to be honest, how many of the people that listen to our kind of, I was going to say podcast in a weird way then, who's listening to our podcast that's like...
It is a podcast. It is a podcast.
Who's listening to this lecture? Yeah. And it is a lecture. But yeah, who's listening to this and going like, well, that's all I drink. So like, that's my cider. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm coming from it like, tannin's this, tannin's... but like, I'm drinking one that we put Pinot in to get more tannin. So I'm obviously not the market. Right, so I get that, but it just looks like on the outside where you're like, okay, so if you're at all buying fruit from abroad to put into your cider, then it is this costs more and this is that. Like if you're bringing in fruit from Asia at all and you're saying that it's 40 miles away, so that's a lot. Just like that, you can't have both.
That's fair enough.
In a discussion. Again,
I think one of the challenges also comes into the fact that orchards don't receive any kind of funding in the UK, unlike other crops where there are subsidies available to support the apple grower to continue to do so. Orchards have absolutely no financial support or funding from government, which is maybe how it kind of should be across the board, so that agriculture can be a sustainable kind of business. But it's very, very challenging for that to happen for most arable crops and for most livestock in the UK. But yeah, orchards don't get any kind of support at all, which again seems to be a bit of a travesty. But also worth pointing out that it isn't necessarily a case that all cider makers are struggling with trying to sell ciders with tannin. It's a really sort of nuanced story. The likes of Westons and Thatchers continue to use lots of fruit, and obviously the multitude of small producers. It's just that they are so, Heineken is so much bigger than everybody else that any sort of impact that happens on them, it sort of has quite a big mark over the industry. And speaking to North American friends, they're absolutely perplexed because there's such a huge demand for this kind of fruit in North America. It's much harder to get a hold of. So if anybody is interested in, buying, well, it's a bit late now, I suppose, but any other orchards that might come up for sale and ship several thousand tons of apples across the ocean.
Hey, honey, I've just seen on Gumtree, used like new, loads of trees.
It says grubbed. I don't know what that means, but... yeah, I mean, there's.
I think it's English for food.
Also, when we're obviously talking on quite a large scale here, as you mentioned, in terms of it's Heineken, and it's this single orchard or collection of trees is a pretty small portion of their output, but being someone insider up in Scotland, tannic fruit isn't something that we have a lot of up here either. But I think Scottish cider is starting to get a good name for itself, starting to get recognised. People in our sort of micro cider world are turning their eyes towards Scotland, and people up here, cider makers up here, are planting trees, and they're choosing tannic varieties, Scottish varieties, and I'm not saying it's good that we're getting rid of less tannins, but the fact that we can look at what fruit is available and use that to make cider, it doesn't necessarily have to be these traditional cider apples, these bitter sweets that have those tannins, is an exciting thing. And my response to it wouldn't be, oh, fuck it, let's rip them all out. But, using, it's not just that these sweeter dessert apples, culinary apples are just used for flavoured cider. There's also small makers who are kind of, there's a movement towards that in our kind of world as well, which I think is exciting.
Definitely.
It's definitely got an identity that's growing. Like same as like the extremes of Cornwall, Devon and Scotland, those kind of like sharper ciders. I've started going for more of them than I would have before. So I get that, like chasing different tannins. But yeah, the real takeaway from all this is that Scotland's very exciting.
Yes,
is that
Scotland.
The guy who owns the Scottish cider shop, that's his input on the Welsh orchard.
It's funny that, isn't it?
Just texting the CEO of Heineken here, just be like, yep, just get the rest of them out as well, man. Just keep on grubbing.
The final point that it also leads into the fact is that lots of people state, well, a way to give value back to that orchard and any other orchards that might be under threat is to increase the minimum juice content in the UK as well. As a reminder, dear listeners, in the UK, a cider that it can be taxed as cider rate, which is a bit more preferential compared to beer and wine, needs only to have 35% apple juice. If you were to increase that across the board to, let's say, even 50%, I know there are people who would want it to be considerably higher than that, but if you did it to 50%, the thousands of extra tons worth of apples and apple juice that would necessitate would give life and viability, I think, possibly to orchards like this. And that was going to potentially be something that was going to be debated this year. But of course, we've now got a general election instead. So that's been put on the back burner.
Will we potentially look back at this at the point that minimum juice gets put up, if that ever happens, and then be like, shit, we've not got enough apples? You know what I mean? I mean, seriously, you know, I mean,
well, no, you're right.
You know, it could, because presumably Gabe, you'll probably be able to tell us more accurately, but I imagine the ciders that Heineken make will be 35% on the nose. The majority.
Strongbow probably will be, but the others probably between 35 and 50 or 60, but Strongbow will be right on it.
But with that juice content, if you were to say take something like Tremlett's Bitter and concentrate it and have 35% of the drink be that, what does concentration do to tannins? What does it do to the character and how much comes across? Because, like, again, all the makers that we know, they would put a bit of water in maybe and some malic or something to balance, but that's like 10% max, really.
Sure.
Yeah, on the extreme end of like the smaller cider makers. But like, what does that character do at that stage, like at that amount of dilution?
It's a good question. I mean,
Thanks.
This is
Thanks. And that's a wrap.
and that's it.
Fuck, I'm good.
Again, it leads. Martin has possibly unwittingly found his way down into another bit of the legislation, but it's not just that it's 35% apple juice. It's also a case of what constitutes juice, just how juicy is juice. And if you do it from like a sweetness perspective, if you were selling apple juice straight to a consumer in the UK, it needs to have a specific gravity, which is a measure of the density, a proxy for the amount of sugar that's in there, of 1.045. That's for apple juice, selling apple juice to a consumer. Apple juice for use in cider can be 1.033 SG. What that means for anybody who has zero interest, which is very wise, is that you can basically dilute apple juice with water beyond sort of its sort of sugary sweetness of where it started. It's probably started its life, and you can still count that as being 100% juice. So you could, if it was a really hot year, like we're obviously going to have this summer now, and it builds up the sugars naturally in the fruit, it could be you have a specific gravity of 1.066. The Battle of Hastings specific gravity. There you go. And you could...
God, he loved it. He loved saying that. The joy. Oh,
Yes,
his shoulders.
finally
He rolled
got
his
it in.
shoulders.
The Battle of Hastings. Can't wait for the Bannockburn SG.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck
If
you
you
right
were
up.
to have, let's say, Kingston Black at 1066, and you diluted that 50-50 with water so that juice became 1033, that would still count as 100% apple juice, which you could then chaptalize, add sugar into, take it up to 12%.
You mean back sweeten?
No, I mean chaptalize, Martin. Thank you. This is pre-fermentation. You can take that up to 12, 13% alcohol and then dilute back down to 35%. That is cider.
Okay, now.
There we go. So it's a big difference. So if you were able to sort of tweak and amend some of this bits of legislation, then who knows, maybe it will provide some support for these orchards.
I think it would be good to chat to someone who makes cider at that kind of quantity, or anyone that would represent that, because as little as we actually would drink those, say, I think that's a huge discussion. And I think three guys and Scott guessing.
Hang on, is Scott not a guy?
What happens?
No.
That's a bit unfair.
I mean, us guessing and Scott's just listening.
He's a piece of
So rather
spanakopita,
than-
isn't he? He's just sat there looking, quite green and spinachy. Quite tasty.
Oh, yeah. But I think an informed discussion on that sounds like a riot.
That does sound like, well, it sounds like it would be good informed. This is like public service as well as entertainment here at the Neutral Cider Hotel. It's not just all silly, gratuitous laughing. Thank you very much, Martin. This is serious talk. Well, that's a wrap on the serious talk. And now, how about we get into some fun? Because next up, we're going to have our conversation with comedian Mr. Ed Byrne. And now here at the Neutral Cider Hotel, it's time to bring on our very special guest. This week, we are speaking to comedian Ed Byrne, who is very busy on tour at the moment with his latest show, Tragedy Plus Time. And we have some intelligence from me, because I've tasted it, that Ed is also, or has been, a cider maker in the past. So we've had a few celebrity guests on the show, but never a cider making one before. So Ed, welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm still a cider maker. Yes, I do it every other year, because as anybody who knows about cider knows, your apple crops are generally sort of alternate from bumper to meager year on year.
Indeed.
and last year was meager, and hopefully this year will be good. And I've still got probably about 80 pints of cider from. I made no, couldn't be.
Do you
80,
pour them into pints?
About 50 into pint bottles.
Just line them all up.
They would go warm in the heat. Sure, that's not good. Also, think of the wasps that you'd attract. Because I'm in my office, which is also where I store my cider, which is probably not very good for anyone.
Terrible.
But yeah, I made about 10 gallons of cider the year before last.
Excellent. And is this from your own orchard?
Yeah, just 2 trees in the garden. It's like one's a cooker, one's an eater, and between them, the juice makes pretty good cider. But you're 4 guys in 4 different places. It was just logistically too difficult to send everybody a bottle in time. But what would have been funny is that obviously there's not a lot of. I say not a lot of quality control. It's not the most uniform. It's not a very big scale operation. So it wouldn't be at all within the realms of possibility that one you'd get like a shit one you'd get a really fizzy one you get a really flat one. One to get a sweet one to dry, and you'd all just end up arguing.
I'm gonna tell you for free, Ed, we've had actual professionals on that have given us that experience. So you're in good company.
Definitely not alone. And also, the majority of our previous guests have actually not even been drinkers. So the fact that we have someone who not only drinks cider but has made it, I mean, you're already got a head start on everyone.
Sweet.
How did you get into it?
There is a club in the village where I live, and they used to just come and take the apples and give us a couple of bottles of cider in exchange. And then having chatted to them a bit, I realized that actually I was the major contributor to the entire cider club. And the amount of cider, the return I was getting on my investment was actually pretty poor. And
it's not that hard.
Smoke and mirrors.
Just do it.
Yeah. And then that's just it. I looked into it and realized that, once you buy a press, that's your major outlay. That's your, that's your commitment. And then the rest of it's actually pretty easy. Like I don't use there's not a great deal of process. As long as all your stuff is sterilized, that's probably the most sort of intense process involved. I found that scratting them, I bought a scratter. It was useless. The best thing to do is just metal bucket, log.
Really?
That's
old school scratting.
Old school. That's the easy way to do it because some people have like a production line where they'll quarter them, and then those quartered apples will go into the scratter, and then that'll go into. But you just take the apple. I've got a log like that, and you drill 2 holes in it to put some handles in. That's again.
That is brilliant.
I mean, I'm in my 50s. Bit of woodwork, ideal. It makes the whole thing a proper old man thing.
But you still got to have a bit of strength, though.
Yeah, listeners won't be able to see. He's fucking ripped. He's absolutely ripped.
And they could hear by that laugh, he is absolutely not ripped.
But you were saying then about it being like on year, off year.
Yeah. In
a serious question, do you have to then, do you say to the tour manager or whatever, like, we might actually need to have some dates where I go home? Like, how do you fit it into your actual professional life? Oh, well, it doesn't take up that much time because I don't, even when I go on tour, I'm not like away on tour the entire time. Like, I mean, I'm at home right now. I go to Brighton tomorrow, for instance. I've seen you wear his dad. Yeah, I know where you go. So I'll stay the night there. So I'm not in hotels every night. Like this week, I'm actually home quite a few days. So I'll be home at the weekend and then just have to head out in the sort of late afternoon. So I do get home enough that I can indulge in classic country and lock-in pursuits like woodworking, cider making, sourdough, natch.
And how has touring changed for you over the years then? You're now obviously your side hustle of cider and family man? How's it changed over the years?
I mean, I'd say the biggest change obviously came with having kids, because then it with the best will in the world, it sucked a lot of the fun out of the traveling, because they did. Their existence sucked the fun out of the traveling. That you no longer enjoy being away. You know, when me and my wife were first together, she used to travel with me a lot of the time, and if the gig wasn't great, if it wasn't that well, it didn't really matter, because, you know, the hotel's paid for, everything could be a working holiday. And particularly when it came to going abroad, like you go to somewhere like Napier in New Zealand, which is this beautiful Art Deco city, and it's got hills near it. So we go there and have a nice meal. I'd do the show. The next day we'd try and get a hike in, up some mountains, something like that. Break up the tour that way, that kind of stuff. And it doesn't matter that only 150 people showed up on a Saturday night, because it was just all part of life's rich. But now it's like, if only 150 people come on Saturday night, sorry, Napier, off the list. Mark. Because, I'm here on my own.
These hills are shit.
It's got to pay. Yeah, fuck those hills. I don't even have time for the hills. I'm doing another gig tomorrow. So that's that. You're far more mercenary about the whole touring experience, unfortunately. And everything's got to come down to whether or not it pays. Now, luckily the kids are of an age now where just like last month, a couple of months, April, they were able to take 2 weeks out, on their Easter holidays, and they came to Melbourne when I was there for the festival. So that was, nice. I mean, it made Melbourne, again, far less profitable.
You're really selling this childhood life. Well, actually, myself, Martin, and Grant, we all have kids under 3, and so it was part of the reason why
with different people.
With different, absolutely. Yeah, it was very boring when it's just the same. So we this podcast started during lockdown as an endeavor to keep a bit of mirth and a bit of camaraderie and sort of community pub spirit, and then the cold, hard reality of work and children then sort of hit. And so this is us grabbing a few extra episodes in before more children probably come along, as it happens. So you're based in Essex, I do believe.
Probably, he said. That sounds like a man who knows something he's not allowed to tell us.
You don't need to wait for the Ed episode of a soft launch.
I might have been on the train through to Stansted Airport, through your fine town stroke village just the other week as it happened, but not so much of a seething hotbed of cider production. But it sounds like your interest in fruit actually stems a little bit further back. You initially started studying horticulture at Strathclyde University. I wondered why, I suppose, actually, not what, why.
Why? Yeah, no, that's a good question. Do you know what it was? No, you don't. That's why you asked. Don't know why I would preface my answer in that way. It was a kind of a last minute thing. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I used to work with my uncle as a gardener. That was basically about the size of it, and I never really entertained it seriously as a profession long term. I had always I fancied the idea of going into entertainment, whether acting or presenting or something along those lines. I actually hadn't aimed as high as stand-up comedy, but I knew I fancied something along those lines. But I had a very I had it drummed into me from an early age that it needed to have a proper trade to fall back on. So I thought gardening seemed a good one, because you can be self-employed, and then if I wanted to do auditions or anything like that, or pursue a life on the stage, that I could work when I needed to work and according to my own hours and stuff like that, without having like a boss, So that was why I decided gardening. And then I also thought, because I'm just a ponce, I'll do a degree in it rather than...
Fair enough.
There was also a kind of a pressure of, an academic expectation that surely you did well in your leaving certificate. You should go to university. You shouldn't just do some sort of HND or in landscape design. You should do this, do a degree. So that's what I did. But I regret it to this day. I had a great time at college, but I dropped out halfway through second year, and I should have done drama or TV production or something that I actually could use today. But funny enough, I did a TV show with Jonathan Ross a long time ago, and he introduced me and he said that I had done horticulture. And he said, think about it, and if you'd actually stuck with the gardening instead of going into comedy, you might have your own TV show by now. That's quite a fair comment.
And that was in Glasgow, right?
I was in Glasgow that I started doing. Yeah, it was in Glasgow. Was where I studied, and studied is a very grandiose term for what I did. And then also where I started doing stand-up comedy as well in a little comedy club that I started in a pub on Glassford Street.
And was Glasgow or Scotland in general a good place for comedy at that time? Did you feel a connection to it for that reason?
At that time, it had been before, and it has been since. But right at that time, it wasn't great. There had been no, honestly, that's why I had to start my own club,
right?
Because there had been a place called Blackfriars, which is the place that a lot of people came out of, who people may or may not know now, but like Ford Kieran and John Paul Leach and that, the people who behind Still Game came out of that, back when they were it was Kieran and Leach, and there was the Trio Brothers troupe and stuff like that. But Bruce Morton, Stu Hu, Lord of Mercy on him, Fred Macaulay, Parrot, people like that, they all came out of this scene they called the Funny Farm, which was out of Blackfriars, but that had closed. That wasn't doing it at the time. And now you've got the Stand, which has got its own scene, both in Glasgow and Edinburgh. But at the time there wasn't anything. So I had to start my own place.
Nice. What was that?
As it was in a bar that's now called Balance, and at the time was called the 13th Note. For the longest time, it was called Traders. There is another 13th Note in Glasgow, but that's a different one.
It was elsewhere. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's where it all started.
Could I take the opportunity to say that we have got a cider, and we should probably be drinking some cider. Ed, I would certainly like you to drink some cider.
Well, I'm looking at mine.
Have you opened it, Ed?
I haven't opened it yet. No, I thought we were going to do that ceremoniously.
I think we've already opened ours. A, because we're very thirsty, and B, because there's always a chance that the bottle might be somewhat lively. Possibly. Oh! Look at that!
Mine's
goodness
sitting in a bucket of ice. I've been making sure.
That.
Yeah.
Fancy.
I've treated myself.
You have.
Well, it seems a very fancy cider.
It's quite a fancy cider, right? Should we talk about it?
No details.
Right, okay.
They haven't paid for the advert here. No, go on, Gabe. Give us the spiel.
I was going to say fancy cider for a fancy person. That's how we roll here at the pod. This is a cider.
There you go.
This is a cider from a chap called Mike, who this cider is made down in mid-Devon. It's called Rull Orchard. This particular cider is called... Jesus Christ.
Yeah, here we go.
That blew some channels into the red.
It's a product called Starlight, and it's what's called full traditional method. So this is made in the same way as champagne. So it's had a first fermentation in tank. It's then been placed into the bottle with some sugar and some yeast and a cap on the top, and it's undergone a second fermentation in the bottle. The little bit of yeast sediment has then been removed via this riddling and disgorging, and so you're left with a naturally sparkling, naturally clear, very wonderful, bright and zesty cider.
How, if you don't mind me asking, how do they get rid of the sediment that's used in the bottle to make the fizziness and then still retain the fizziness?
Yeah, it's a clever one. It's this process called riddling and disgorging. So if you've ever seen the bottles sort of slightly upended on racks and they get moved, sort of in the old school where you'd slightly move the bottle, and so the yeast would move down until it's inverted. And then so the yeast is just sort of sat when the bottle is upside down, just above the neck, and then that gets plunged
just in the neck of the bottle.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And then it gets sort of plunged into freezing water, and that bit of cider that sort of sits below that freezing water line, it freezes with the ice in it. You then open up the bottle, and obviously it is a big bang, and the ice plug with the yeast gets shot out, and you do lose a bit of CO2, but you would have pressurized it quite a lot, and there's still so much that's left dissolved within the liquid that you can then afford to put a cork and wire on, make it look nice, and you've still got plenty of fizz left. So,
well, there you go. Every day's a school day.
But maybe you could try that with this batch, with your next batch.
That's right.
I could see myself blowing stuff up.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah.
It will go from you're like, I've got like 80 pints. And if you do that, you're like, I've got 8 pints.
Not that fizzy either.
Yeah, it's still, this like flaccid little yeast thing just falls out.
Goodness me. What a tasting note.
What do we think?
It's quite dry, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is.
He said, and they all just go, no, it's really sweet.
No, it's actually really sweet. Yeah, it's
What have we done?
Yeah. No, we got the intel that you might prefer a slightly drier cider, as we do all here, also in the main. Cider, the vast majority of cider will start its life bone dry.
I should have read the bottle before I tried to even make any pronouncements. That's my opinion.
Don't worry, you're in very good company for people just making blasé assumptions on things.
How do we feel about people about drinking cider like with ice?
Do what you like. Do whatever you like. Out of any vessel, with anything. If you're buying cider, it's yours. Mm-hmm. That's how I view it.
I'm drinking mine out of an Innocent Gun glass.
Oh yeah,
an Edinburgh beer.
My opinion on the ice is you're going to end up with quite a watery glass of cider after a short while. But do what you want. But
that's why you have to make sure you have to keep topping it up with more cider.
Drink it really quickly. Yeah.
How did you get so drunk? Honey, I had to make sure I wasn't drinking watery cider. How did you know anything about drinking cider?
What would be what's on your rider, Ed, when you're on tour? Do you have cider on your rider?
No, you'd be surprised. There's nothing. I have nothing on my rider.
You don't have a rider?
No. When I go on tour, anything you ask for from the venue, you're still paying for.
Yeah,
at
true.
venue prices. They don't give it to you for free.
Yeah.
If somebody hires you to do a gig, you could ask for stuff, and that'll be given to you on top, But when you're actually on tour, it's all the expenses are out there. So there's no point. Just you have a fridge in the back of the car.
Bring your own hummus.
Exactly. No, nothing as fancy as hummus. Hula hoops, mini cheddars. Occasionally, if I'm feeling particularly fancy, it'll be like Walker's Sensations sweet chili.
Ooh, is that a Saturday night?
That's in an 800 plus venue. Anywhere below 800, it's just mini cheddars.
Not in Napier.
No, can't afford mini cheddars. Can't afford Walker's Sensations if I go to Napier. But I bring usually it's IPA, hazy IPA, preferably,
right?
And and I normally then do try and seek out a local hostelry before the gig, preferably a microbrewery. And a lot of times you can find them. More and more around the country, you can. Like my ideal places are ones where it's like tables made out of pallets. And some 25-year-old Polish guy who owns the whole thing and just loves beer and just makes it and has try this. It's a sour. It's a fruity sour. That's horrible.
Thank you. Is that a kind of pre-show ritual for you to go for a pint?
Yeah, and then post about it. I did pre-show pint, so I posted on social media and I try and plug. If I end up not being able to go to a decent pub and all that's on offer is, bog standard beer, I tend to just say what happened, but I don't bother tagging John Smith's in the post,
You're not that comedian.
No, exactly.
I thought we were talking to someone else. Oh shit, yeah.
Okay.
But if it's a local or independent brewer, I'll always try and just give them a little plug.
I do enjoy seeing where your hashtag pre-show pint is, and I live just outside Hereford, and I think last September you did a gig here, and you made your way to the wonderful Hereford Beer House, and you had a my stalking editor would tell me that you had a pint of Arbor Ale Mosaic, I do believe, as it happened, which was, I'm sure,
there you go,
a very delectable pint.
We're can I just get in here now and say I'm currently sitting 15 minutes from St Andrews, so when you're here, pop in for a pint. I'll drive you there and back. I'll give you a strong one.
Beautiful, excellent. Sounds like a plan.
But you have to bring a bottle of your own as a tray, right?
Will do.
A pre-poured pint of your own.
Yeah.
Yes.
For all. Just cling film and an elastic band over the top.
Yeah, with a couple of wasps in there, maybe. Handy.
It's like when Tony Hawk's carried that fridge all around the place. You have to carry a pint all across these Faroes. Yeah, that's your version.
Yeah. I did get stung to fuck when I was making the cider last time. That is the thing. The wasps are the
they like
big
it, don't they?
issue.
Yeah.
Can't that be the name? Stung to fuck?
Stung to fuck. Yeah.
It's going to be like 3%, isn't it? It's like
yeah. No, I've discovered that it's best to try and make it early evening. That if you do it in the heat of the day, you get absolutely dive bombed.
See, we don't need to worry about heat of the day up here.
Yeah,
Scotland. Anytime. Yeah.
I did one of the weirdest gigs I did actually was down near Bristol. I did a corporate do for Thatcher's. As part of they had a big, they do a big wassailing kind of night, and they invite, folk, local dignitaries, local, business people and stuff like that. And they do a big wassailing thing, which I went to, and everyone's shaking sticks and all that kind of carry on. And we all go into a tent, and it's the weirdest thing. And I got up, I opened by saying, this is the weirdest corporate I've ever been to. This does not have a corporate vibe. This is almost has more of a hippie wedding vibe. Actually, this is more of a opening 10 minutes of a 1970s B-movie British horror about it. Like it genuinely felt like if it didn't go well, I may well be burnt.
Yeah, dancing around the maple.
Yeah.
You should have your own wassail with your two trees. Do you not put bread in the branches? Is that not what they do?
I should have done. I absolutely should have done. Well, at what point does one do that in the you do it in the
it's for the start of the year, isn't it?
You do, historically the 6th of January, 12th night. Or 12th if you're really hardcore and old school, 12th night is actually the 17th of January, because when they changed from the Julian to the Gregorian calendars, they lost 11 days, and the people in deepest, darkest Somerset, they're still not happy about that, so they refuse to say that
still on the old calendar.
Yeah, on the old calendar. So like Christmas Day actually is in the next year, like they push it 11 days behind. So but basically today it's just whatever the easiest weekend in January tends to be, which is quite nice to do something.
Yeah. Well, obviously I didn't have a wassailing event in my own house, because I was busy doing the wassailing event at Thatcher's, and they were paying me money. So I thought, oh well, I'll just have to just fingers crossed with my own trees.
You sell tickets for your own wassail though. Get Thatcher's down.
Mm-hmm. But I did. I was raging that I forgot to bring some of my cider with me. But I did meet the guy, Martin Thatcher, and is it Martin? It is Martin, isn't it? It's the head guy.
It is Martin Thatcher. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So he's going to come to the show in Bristol in September, and I'll bring some cider with me then for him to try.
Oh man! Well, let's talk about the show. Give us the crux of what it is. We've got loads of listeners that are ready to buy theatre tickets. This is the cider dream.
Well, I imagine you probably have a few Bristolians probably do listen. It's called Tragedy Plus Time, and it was the most well-reviewed stand-up comedy show at last year's prestigious Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Here he fucking is. Here he is.
Well done.
I find it's easier to mention that than actually talk in detail about what the show is about, because when I tell people what the show is about, it just sounds like an absolute downer. Because the show is about my little brother dying, which does sound like a fairly dour, miserable topic for comedy, but it is what he would have wanted for me to make a comedy show out of his death. So that is what I have done. And so, as I say to the audience, if you don't laugh at this shit, you're the ones disrespecting the dead.
Yeah.
It's just a bit of emotional blackmail I employ early
Was
doors.
that the first line you came up with when you were writing it?
Yeah, pretty much. That and a joke that he gave me, which was, he had a joke, which is, again, it's also very early in the show, which was about thinking about, because he needed a liver transplant, like his liver failed. And he was saying, like, you know what, Ed, it's not the fact that I might die. Obviously not jazzed about that. It's more the fact that in order for me to live, someone else has to die. And I need someone else's liver. And it could be somebody nicer than me. It's just a lot. It's a lot to take on. I go, yeah, that's pretty heavy. And he goes, but you know what? 2 people probably died to make me fuck an iPhone. So that was like the first joke of the show, was that one that he actually wrote. So that's the sort of tone of the humor pretty much through the show. And then it's not all about that. There's a lot of digressions here and there. I talk about COVID. I talk about conspiracy theories. I talk about how much I hate James Corden. Not how much I hate James Corden.
Oh shit, he's a listener.
So I talk about how much I love how much other people hate James Corden. That's I don't personally hate him. I just find it amusing how much other people hate him.
This sounds way darker. Even just like conspiracy theories and that. Like I grew up watching you with like Mock the Week, and I swear it was like a Comedy Central like one-off thing where I remember you did the Alanis Morissette thing, but I can't find that any. I swear it was on Comedy Central, but
it may have been. It was on a DVD called Pedantic and Whimsical, which was released. Which I made, which was released
the name of your cider.
Yeah. And I called it Pedantic and Whimsical before I even knew I had ADHD. It was made by Warner Brothers, and I think they might have put it on Comedy Central, but it's now it's from a unit of Warner Brothers that doesn't exist anymore, that closed down. And now no one owns it, and now you can't even buy the DVD anymore. I think the rights have now reverted to, well, not like anyone buys fucking DVDs anymore. It's like Adele's the only person who even sells CDs, for Christ's sake. But yes, but I think that was what that was on. It was on that special, as we call them nowadays, called Pedantic and Whimsical, which hopefully I think has now, the rights have reverted to me, so I think I'll be putting it online again soon.
You need to do like a Taylor Swift and do the version of it again, just now older and slower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More dour.
With more cider.
It's not really going to work if I, as a 52-year-old, for me to be doing jokes about how I don't want to have kids.
You're like, you do the whole bed routine and you're like, I just miss bed. I just miss bed so much now.
Yeah, the bed routine. Yeah, that's the one. That's absolutely the one that was on that one. Yeah. Yeah, God. It would be just the idea of re-recording it is a funny idea, but it just wouldn't fly. As it is, even if I was to re-release it, I would definitely have to watch it again first and go, no, do you know what? Let's just take that out as well. You know?
Did this feel like a new? Obviously, it's a very specific topic, but did it feel like a slight shift in direction in terms of your comedy?
Yeah, for me, it was. I mean, there's a lot more of it about nowadays, of people sort of taking trauma and sadness and turning it into comedy. But a lot of the time, it can be quite light on jokes. And I'm trying not to do that, trying to make sure that there's still, but yet still retain some of the gravity of some of the more serious moments that are told. And that is a completely new thing for me, to have feedback where people are saying things like, I laughed and then I cried and then I laughed again and then I cried laughing and then I just cried and then I laughed again. You know, like that's not, I don't normally take my audience on that much of a journey, shall we say. But do you know what I liken it to? I'm never just vocal. As drinky guys, it's like, you know, when you have like a whiskey and y'all drink, you surely.
Yes.
Yeah, y'all drink whiskey, yeah. You know how sometimes you'll have a whiskey and it'll it has a bunch of different flavors in it that sort of come one after another. And even though the flavors individually, you might not actually like. You might not like pepper or smoke or fucking TCP, but they're there and they'll come one after another. And the fact you can, that it just overall, you just basically go, wow, it's really good because you get all this different stuff from it. So this show is a bit like that in that you might not like being made to feel sad occasionally, but the fact that you can be made to feel sad and then find it really funny again and then find it uplifting at the end, that's hopefully, why people will come away feeling like it's a quality show.
But looking back at like older stuff, you've got that kind of it's kind of a quick punch. There's a release of tension immediately. This sounds like you set the scene and you go hard and dramatic, and then you go back to hit with a punchline. Do you find that like there's half the amount of jokes? Like how do you go about writing something like this then? I would say there's still roughly the same amount of jokes, but there's about 3 or 4 moments in the show where it does slow down before then a very big laugh. And there's a lot more as well of looping back to things that were earlier. You always have a bit of that, a bit of callback, a bit of reincorporation, stuff like that. But this is it kind of almost becomes a bunch of different stories about ADHD, about being left-handed, about that all sort of come into play in the story of how me and my little brother sort of got on with each other. So it's been rewarding as a show, and the audience feedback has been very, very strong. But occasionally you get people who think this is not what I signed up for on a Saturday night. Didn't come here to think. Didn't come here to feel sad. Just want to laugh, please.
Did you find it cathartic at all to write it?
There's a couple of bits in the show that I find very rewarding to do because. And I'd say cathartic is probably a good. There's a story of an argument me and my little brother had where we didn't speak then for ages, and I was determined at the time that it was all his fault. And now in the retelling of the story, I kind of realized obviously I had my part to play in the argument, and I, for the purposes of comedy, I paint myself as very much, being at fault in the argument, and I know that all of the parts of the show. That's the bit that if he was still around that he could see, it's the bit that he would find most satisfying. It's almost even though I did apologize to him and we did make up and stuff like that, I feel like that section of the show is kind of the apology I never really got to have with him, and I think of because he was a director of comedy and he co-wrote people's stand-up shows with them and stuff, and I think that'd be the thing that if he was to watch the show, he'd be most happy with. So having that and coming up is very satisfying. And also the fact that a load of people are coming to the show every night who'd never heard of Paul Byrne, don't know who he was, and then they go away knowing who he was, also feels pretty good. Has your kind of telling of that part of the story and like kind of making yourself worse, has that changed over the course of doing the show again and again? Like how much of it has like kind of shifted? I don't know. I don't really know. I just know that sometimes you just hit on a way of telling a story and suddenly you find there's a massive laugh there that you didn't even realize was there before. And one of my most satisfying laughs of the show is in the telling of talking about that argument about just the fact that and then he stormed off and that was the end of that. No, it wasn't. It wasn't the end of that. But the end of it was that I left my car with the engine running at a green light and went after him because I wasn't done arguing yet. And in the context of the story, it's just if that usually gets a massive laugh. If on the rare night that doesn't get a big laugh, I always go, right, I hate you people. There's always certain jokes that you'll judge an entire audience on, even if they like the whole of the rest of the show. There's about 3 or 4 jokes in this show where if they don't hit, I'm like, no. Your money is dirty money.
Oh, God. Ed, I've got a very important question for you here, which is you're from Swords, aren't you? Just sort of in part of the Greater Dublin area.
North County Dublin.
My question to you is this: have you ever entered into the Fingal Horticultural Society's annual show?
No, I have not.
Oh,
He asks every guest this.
it's true. It's true. It's not
And he
just
thought,
for you.
this is finally, we have a live one. Finally, we have a possibility.
There is a theme though, because did you not ask Ben Gibbard about entering some kind of berry?
I did ask
festival.
Ben Gibbard about the Black Currant Festival in his hometown, to which he went. No. It was quite, but there was no comedy associated with it. He was quite serious, and I felt quite embarrassed.
I can tell you that no, I have never entered the Fingal one because I left home at 18 and I never had any interest that early on of trying to do stuff like that. But there is a village near us called Thaxted, which it has a horticultural and craft fair, and my wife is obsessed with it. And we enter all kinds of things and produce from the garden in that. And the cider will go into that this year.
Ooh.
And have you ever won anything?
Yeah. Yes, but I mean, there's so many categories and prizes that can be won. So the kids have won stuff for stuff they've made out of wood and drawings and
the scratter?
Stuff
Was that best scratter award? Was it for a lump of wood? Yeah.
No, that never won anything. No, but like a shield that my little boy made, and I did there was some stuff that we grew. I think our apples came second prize.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
So it is a thing that we go in for. I say we. My wife's obsessed with it. My wife's up, but I am secretly quite happy when we come back with rosettes.
Yeah, of course. That's right. It's.
You should have them on display in the background, really.
Mm-hmm.
He does, but that shard of light is absolutely blind.
Yeah, it's ruined it.
I should have. If I'd known I was going to be asked about this, I would have had them to hand and would have shown you. But it's
all those interviews you've been doing where you're like, oh God, they're not even asking. I'm going to put them away.
It's exactly.
Do you mean to say that you've never been asked a question about the Fingal Horticultural Society annual show before? Am I the first person? Yeah. I mean, I feel honoured and privileged, I have to say.
I've got to be honest with you about the whole Fingal thing, right? Because Fingal is an area of North Dublin, and the Fingal County Council really fancy themselves as they want Fingal to be its own county, as opposed to being part of Dublin, and none of us have gone in for it. They're not gonna. And they'd even put up signs saying "Welcome to County Fingal," and we're like, "Fuck off, still in County Dublin." This is bullshit. So yeah, they're. Yeah, I find even the word Fingal County Fair. No, because Fingal is not a county as far as I know. So it's an ancient county that they keep trying.
Gabe, you've kicked him off.
Yeah. There's a lot, but you don't understand how political this whole thing is.
I think I did know. I just wanted to stir it a little bit.
Yeah, there you go. Now he's riled up.
Yeah. I only know Fingal from the World's Strongest Man event called Fingal's Fingers. That is, that fantastic TV show that's on over Christmas, and New Year, every single year. It's a thing. It's a thing.
Fingal's Fingers.
Fingal's, Google it. Fingal's Fingers.
My younger son Magnus is obsessed with that whole World's Strongest Man thing.
There you go.
Yeah. He's 12. He watches footage from from back in the 80s. People like.
Is he named after Magnus Ver Magnusson, that famous Icelandic giant behemoth? I really hope he is.
He's not named after him, but he is. We took a gamble when we called him Magnus because it's gonna really not suit him if he turns out to be a skinny wretch. But no, he's an absolute welter.
He's hench.
He's got a hench dad. That's it.
There you go.
I did see a little bird told me. I did a tiny bit of research. Do you like Prince?
Ooh.
Yes. Yes.
As a cider link, and this is an advert they haven't asked for, but there's a company called Artist Straw who have a cider called Biscay, which their label's inspired by Prince 1999, and that is getting a re-release this weekend. But I've basically said, "Oh, can you send him a bottle?" And they haven't responded. But now they've been forced to.
There's probably only 6 bottles or something.
They're like, "Fuck's sake."
It is an interesting thing to name it after somebody who was famously teetotal, though. He doesn't. Prince did not. Prince didn't drink. Yeah.
No, but he's got cool vibes. That's it. They're just literally like, yep, we want that. But my point was more, we'll get a bottle to you.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, I'll add that to my memorabilia.
Did you ever see Prince?
I did, yeah, many times. Yeah, what's annoying is I actually know people who've met him, and they were not deserving of the what's the word, of the privilege. Like a friend of mine, Dave Johns, did warm up on when they brought back Saturday Live, as it was called. You remember the one that Ben Elton used to host, and then it was Lee Hurst, and Prince played that, and Dave Johns did the warm up and got to meet him. I'm like, you don't even like Prince. I know.
What did he say? It's like,
but he actually, I think he actually did like a routine about him, and then walked off and went and slapped him on the face and went, follow that. Famously. Oh yeah, no, I got really annoyed actually. I remember when Prince died, listening to like BBC Six Music. I remember tweeting about it and going, wow, you really don't have to know a lot about Prince to be asked on the radio to talk about Prince. It's like, yeah, I met him once. It was like that. I met him once. It was really short. Well, thanks for the inside track, fucko.
You're just sitting by your phone with all of your photo albums.
Yeah. I know. So I wanted to do Prince when I was on Mastermind. I wanted to do him as my chosen specialist subject, but Beverly Knight had been on the same series and she did Prince. So I had to do the Star Trek movies instead.
She got it over you.
Yeah. And I did watch her episode and I got more answers right than she did.
Yeah. Did you win
I did not win.
the second choice? Then you can say that was sabotage, surely.
I guess,
like,
technically.
you can't say, what's your specialist subject? No, not that one. Like, no, that is my fucking...
That is my special subject. No, absolutely. You'll never know as much about anything as you would know about the thing, whatever thing you were most obsessed with from the age of 15 to 18. That's the thing you'll always just know more about than anything. And that was Prince. So, yeah.
Rather than your second. What's your second specialist subject?
The Star Trek movies. Yeah. That was, who else? Yeah. It's just not fair.
What was the best Prince gig you saw?
Do you know what the best one was? When he was at the O2. I went to see him twice at the O2. But then the actual O2 gig was grand. But the O2 gig was like his Vegas show. And it was kind of a soulless run through of the hits, and there was loads of medleys and stuff like that. And it was grand and spectacular. But then what was great was you could then just buy tickets to the after show at the Indigo 2, which is like a 500-seater, 600 something size club. And that's where, there was about a 50-50 chance he'd show up to that and be part of it. And he did the night I went to that. And that was awesome because it was all the stuff that because what always annoyed me about Prince, I feel like we've gone off on a tangent now. We're not talking about either comedy or cider, but he used to do this thing all the time where he'd play, whatever gig he was doing, Croke Park, whatever, and he'd play for like an hour, and then he'd go to some club that only the beautiful people could get into and jam for fucking 3 hours or go all night. And it was all just people who were like, in the know or hot looking or connected to the fucking record company. They all got that. Whereas the fans who actually, they just get a fucking hour, which he's, because he's like, it's almost like he's saving himself for the party later.
For the sexy people.
Yeah, for the sexy people. Whereas when he was at the O2, you could just buy tickets for that after show. And the after show was awesome.
You've got to edge your fan base entirely and go, see ya.
I went to see him in Cork. The first time he played Ireland, he played Cork. He only did like 45 minutes. And to be fair, the audience was shit. I remember I was right up the front. I was right up the front with a bunch of, obviously, just Prince fans. We've got ribbons in our hair. Some of us have got half our face painted white because from the Batman back dance video. We're all doing
some
stuff.
Of us, we know.
Some of us made an effort. And other people picked different eras. That was always a thing, Taylor. And we were all there, and it was because I remember it was 1990, so it was the year that of Ireland being in the World Cup, And in the middle of a kind of a funk workout, sort of free fall jam thing, the fucking audience just starts singing, ole, 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 ole.
Oh, no.
And we're all up the front going,
Did he not write that?
But we were just fucking embarrassed. And Prince just went, hey,
Christ.
who staged this anyway, or something like that. And we were like, hey. But yeah, it was not. It was. I mean, it was around. It was around the Batman sort of time, which it was not. Shall we say his? It wasn't his creative peak.
Not quite. No.
But even in a low point, that's
still pretty good.
I know when that's not your creative peak, you're all right.
Yeah. Well, there's my passionate argument about how Prince used to shortchange his fans to go and play for hours in to Just the Beautiful People.
Then he always play. He always played parties at Paisley Park, didn't he?
Yeah.
And
people could go to that, but not people in Dublin.
That was ugly people in
problematic. No. It's not that he had a sign saying no. Let's be clear. He didn't. It was not. Let's not malign him now.
You can't talk about him like that, Ed.
No, I'm making it clear that he didn't do this. I'm making sure no one gets the wrong end of the stick here, you know.
Moving swiftly on, maybe. So to distract, you mentioned earlier on about masterminds. You beyond obviously the huge amount of work that you do stand up on tour. There are many shows that you undertake on TV. You've appeared on. You've got quite the line on doing quizzes. You are.
I do like a quiz. I have to say, I do like a quiz. Yeah.
Chase. Also, you were on Celebrity Best Home Cook, and I'm going to quote you by saying, and obviously this is your accent, I cover them in a dry rub that I've been perfecting by trial and error for years, then shove them in a barrel smoker for about 10 hours, spraying them with apple juice and cider to keep them moist.
Mm-hmm. That's my
you
ribs
exited
I'm talking
in the
about.
next round, I do believe. Also...
well, that's because I never got to make barbecue ribs for them because it takes too long. The longest cook you're able to do is like 3 hours. So all the stuff I know how to do is all low and slow shit. So that show didn't fit my skill set.
But why would you go on though? Because it
was lockdown and my tour got cancelled.
It sounds like the next time you're on Sunday brunch, they don't need any other guests. You could be the cider guy, you could be the ribs guy, the comedy guy.
Mm-hmm. We got it nailed. We got it covered.
Yeah.
You're also described on your own Wikipedia page as being the most common guest panelist. Now, I thought it was a bit rude calling you common, but I think it means with the greatest number of appearances of 73 appearances, whenever that entry was.
Unmarked the week.
What I'm really interested about is. I don't think I saw the show, but there was a show called Volcano Live, which sounds like the most Alan Partridge monkey tennis kind of show. Can you tell us how you ended up appearing on Volcano Live?
What I did was a sort of a correspondent thing. I did a few pieces just where I went and visited the seismologists and volcanologists at Bristol University and places like that. And we did little experiments and stuff like that just demonstrated how volcanoes work and all that. So I wasn't in the live bit. The live bit was, now I forget her name. One of the Spring Watch people.
Kilauea was in Hawaii, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah. But if you think about it, like stargazing live kind of works because the stars, although it's still not great because the stars aren't moving a great deal. Spring Watch Live kind of works. But if you think of all the things you want to do live, geology is probably the worst. Like
it's quite slow.
Like if there's anything moves slowly, it is. I think maybe Glacier Live would be the only thing you ask.
Well, no, glaciers are way faster than tectonic plates. I was in Greece just last week, and I was looking at because it's right on a tectonic boundary, and the African plate is subducting the Eurasian plate to something like 34 mil every year. Glacier's definitely moved faster than that.
Right.
So I think you did manage to nail.
And they've turned off. Yeah.
Come back. Please come back. Please come back.
But you've got to really future proof your time lapse cameras to get any kind of decent shot out of that.
Yeah. iPhone storage is full. 3 years in.
Just deleting family photos to keep
I
going.
got fucking was just about to blow. Fuck's sake.
But that's. I think Gabe didn't mention Mock the Week when he said the most casual guest. But
sorry,
can we talk about it? But simply for me, that was like, I. You look back now and you're like, I watched about every fucking episode. That must have been like days.
I was sort of on every other episode. I think I was, yeah, because somebody put a compilation together of all of my scenes we'd like to see, and it was over half an hour of just gag, you know. And it's funny because I'm watching. I started watching, and then I just couldn't. It was just a bit too much. But also was like, why did it even include that one? Because without the rest of the show, that doesn't make any sense. You just watch
the audience allowed, but there's no context.
Yeah, there isn't actually. They were never designed to be seen in that way. It was supposed to be the quickfire round at the end. But people are just so impatient, and people's attention spans are just so cut to the bone by the internet. They say, no, here's just all the quick bits from the end with completely stripped of context.
Has that changed comedy, do you think? What you just mentioned there, that people's attention span is not what it was. And, I guess that one pretty good example of that was maybe the kind of return of Spitting Image, and it didn't really necessarily work that well because, even them making a show a week ahead of time, it's already out of date.
Yeah. There's a lot of different ways in which comedy's changed. The delivery system is changing, certainly, in that there's actually a lot less comedy being made on TV now than there used to be. I mean, they've got rid of so many of the sort of the panel shows and that now, and even the ones that are left don't necessarily make people's careers in the way that they used to do, because everyone's just watching online, and it's interesting because you could do a show that maybe doesn't rate very highly, and then it could still do very well for you because it gets a second life getting passed around. But it seems to be social media is where it's at now. Friends of mine, there's a guy, Red Richardson, for instance, is a good example of somebody who's just hit big by doing funny stuff on Instagram and TikTok. And he's, he does this thing called Stay Toxic where he films these things where it's like the opposite of the people going jogging in the morning, where he's running away from a drug dealer, he's just shortchanged and stuff like that, and it's really, and he's in the States right now touring in a way that he just wouldn't have been able to do off the back of a TV show over here. So yeah, that's the thing, and people are able to find their audiences without having to necessarily cut their teeth on the comedy circuit, which some people can be quite sniffy about and go, oh, they haven't taken their lumps, they haven't, been at the coal phase. Mm-hmm. But the other thing about that is that a lot of these people then come up with stuff that's a bit more interesting and a bit more challenging because they haven't had to, go through stuff that wouldn't work in front of a drunk audience of stag doos at jonglers. It's good that there are people developing comedy just through being able to just do it thoughtfully. And then you get a different kind of comedy that way. You don't want to just watch stuff that's been fucking battle hardened by drunks, because you're only going to get a certain kind of comedy that way. You know what I mean?
Isn't it a different muscle though as well? Like if you took someone who's just done TikTok and then you were like, okay, have the stage for 15 minutes. It's like,
oh, if you took a TikToker and put them in front of a hostile crowd at a rough comedy club, yeah, they'd probably die on their arse. But they don't give a shit. They wouldn't do it. They just go, yeah. You go and die on your arse there, or you go and storm it in front of the drunken arseholes. I will continue to be a millionaire without leaving my fucking house. You're like, they don't care.
But do you kind of get off on that interaction then with the audience? Is that the purpose of it? Because you could easily just stay at home and do what they're doing now.
Well, I don't know if I could easily do that. It's just, it is, because you say it is a different muscle and it is a different skill. And in a way, it's like, it's a shame that they'll never know the joy, because it is a weird joy of getting on a stage, to an audience of people who don't maybe know you and aren't on your side and are maybe difficult, and taking that energy or taking that disinterest and by the end of it have them cheer for you is a lovely feeling. I haven't had it in a while because either people are showing up deliberately to see me and they know who I am, or they don't know who I am and I can't be fucking bothered to entertain them. Like I'll just go, oh, you seem a bit of a shit audience. Fuck this.
Have you done St Andrews before, or?
Yeah. But he didn't get to taste any of the Fife Coast's finest cider. Just before we wrap up, Ed, can we just get your thoughts on the Rull Orchard Starlight, the cider for this evening? Have you been enjoying this tipple?
I'm taking more gulps of it now. Yes, it's
gulpable.
It's very dry. I feel like there's not a great deal of, dare I say, apple flavor coming off it.
Well, it's a good point, but I would also riposte to that with saying, Ed, how many times do you have a glass of wine and saying, I can taste the grapes?
Doesn't taste very grapey.
Doesn't taste very grapey, you know? It's true, but you are absolutely right. It's, this is a blend of Dabinet, big sort of tannic apple, and some of the eating apples down in that part of the world. It's got some structure, some intensity. It'd be a great one with food, to be fair. It actually, cut through the fat and the protein. It would be a beaut with a bit of
yes. There's a sharpness to it, isn't there?
There is a bit of tingle in there as well. So we'll something, maybe this traditional method is something for you to have a crack with next time round. Just maybe do it somewhere slightly cooler than your office.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like part of what I would want to know is how much a bottle of this costs. I think that's would have to factor into my review of it, because if it's incredibly expensive, I would say,
I suppose it depends on what you consider to be expensive. Over the course of the last number of years, the development of a very small category of cider that is occupies these sort of bigger bottle formats for sipping and sharing and having with food can frequently hit 10, 12, 15, 18, maybe even more than £20 possibly. So they've got to be pretty good. With the traditional method, because it's got to go through so many of these sort of steps and processes, and you can count the number of times that a hand touches the bottle to do something, and it can be quite a lot, and so with a traditional method like this, it can yeah.
Oh no, but that's fine. That's still not crazy though, even if it is like 20 quid. I know that's obviously expensive for a bottle of cider, but it's not okay. I was wondering if it was going to be like nice wine sort of prices, But,
nope.
Okay.
Oh no, don't worry about that.
That's fine.
No.
Then I'll allow it.
Brilliant. Fabulous.
Yeah, we just finished this whole thing off with a reminder that I really don't know a lot about cider. Absolutely. Now that we've got to the end, let's just absolutely make sure that let's absolutely unequivocally get that out there.
Maybe then you could change things up a bit, and for your pre-show pint, for every gig going forward till the end of the year, it should be a cider rather than a beer. Just saying, give it a whirl. See how you get on, and hopefully you don't get too much heartburn.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ed, thank you so much for joining us here on the Neutral Cider Hotel podcast. It's been a delight to have you on. And obviously we want to help you to promote your tour. Where should people head to on the interweb to find out more details of the show?
At Byrne.com, we'll have all of the details. In fact, there's even a thing on there where you can put your postcode in if you're in the UK, and it'll tell you where the nearest gig is.
Ed, thank you so much. Cheers to you, my
Thanks,
friend.
man.
Great to have you.
Cheers, guys.
Awesome to have you.
man.
Thank
And best of luck with the tour. And all the best. Cheers.
There you go.
Well, there we go. Our first celebrity interviewee that actually, drank any form of alcohol as number one, but actually was vaguely knowledgeable about cider to boot as well. What a guy! What great fun!
Well,
Oh, mate.
more than vaguely knowledgeable, he makes his own cider.
Yeah.
I mean,
He knows it.
that's as if, what we need next is for James and Susanna from Little Pomona to start doing stand-up comedy. That's the only way that they can really beat him.
Fucking hell. No, for me, it was like, it's a crazy one because it's looking back now, but the amount of mock the week and everything, and like is a comedian that's been there that whole time. You're like crazy just chatting to him. I still find this all perplexing.
Yeah, but I mean, there's something that's so familiar about him, I think, for people our age. Who I know, Martin, you're not our age, whatever. But
middle age.
Fuck off, Rainn Wilson.
He was a child.
But yeah, you kind of forget he was a constant in well, certainly my life anyway. Like Martin said, watching Mock the Week and Have I Got News for You and stuff, you know, he was everywhere and deservedly so, and hilarious. And but yeah, just a lovely chap.
It's just one of those, as you said, where you think that you just know them so well that they almost consider them to be your buddy or already. What do we think to the?
Well, he remembered you, Gabe. He remembered you.
Yeah,
come on.
Did he actually remember me? Did he actually remember me?
Of course. I mean, like he says. I mean, you what other cider expert? If you make your own cider,
has
and you're
beautiful
like, okay,
eyes. Has beautiful eyes. That's right. I know the very iconic.
You remembered the gap in your shirt that revealed a little bit of your chest.
But it's one where I know we've spoke about it on like Drunken Nights in lockdown, but Grant, you were saying it where like Jay got you tickets for the Ciderologist tour or whatever, and you're like, the Ciderologist? Oh my God. But so obviously famous in different fields, but he's gone like, I make cider, and here's a cider professional going, that's good, that is. Yeah. You're like, fuck yeah. Yeah, I'm good.
Of course he's good. I mean, you know, I mean, even if there were 100 cider experts that, you know, come around Sunday brunch every few weeks, you'd still probably be the most recognizable and most memorable.
But because of my, you know, considerable amount of skill and knowledge that I've developed over years, not because of the ridiculousness of having just a silly moustache. Obviously, Grant. Obviously, that's not.
Of course. I know. Yeah, but I kind of feel your pain because we just launched the house cider. If anybody didn't know that, and we put ourselves on the label, and I've got a moustache.
Whoa! Well, no. We're only promoting one side of this episode. That's in touch at the start.
I was actually just promoting my moustache. Is that like?
Actually, the cider that we are promoting this week is, in fact, the cider that Ed was drinking, that we've all been drinking, which is the Rull Orchard Starlight Full Trad Method, as it says on the front, sparkling brut. It is pretty dry. It's it's got a higher level of acidity than I was possibly expecting. But I mean, Mike said Dabinet and dessert apples, that could, and you know, that mix could go either way. Certainly it's got plenty of acidity, but actually for a traditional method cider, you know, champagne method, you kind of need to have that level of acidity to sort of carry it through. I think it works really, really well. As you said, it's just a bit of almost expectation management of knowing that that's the cider that you're going to get, you know. But I think it's executed really well.
We had someone on the show who drinks pints before every show, and then we gave him something that should have been in a flute or champagne bowl. And to be honest, it's effervescent. It's big white flower, orange blossom. It's just drinking celebration cider, and that is exactly what I'd want if I was cracking that with some oysters or something like that, or literally Christmas morning. That's the kind of vibe. And no notes. I've had a few of their stuff. I went down to Ilfracombe and went into this little coffee shop, and they had 2 bottles of like their cold racked, and I was like, haven't had Rull Orchard. Both lovely. And then this is here. I'm like, that's 3 out of 3. So well done.
You want to have their still Dabinet Somerset Red Streak, I think it is. Yeah, incredible. Like just exactly what I want and look for in a still cider. Just like big tannin. I think there's maybe browns in there as well, because there is a bit of acidity, but just like big, bold, bitter orange, and like just nice tannins that just fill your mouth. Just so good.
There we go. Big love for the Rull Orchard in the house here at the Neutral Cider Hotel across various different products. Go and check them out. All right, there we go. That wraps up our chat with Ed and drinking this fantastic cider. Now let's move on to our final segment where we check in with you, our lovely listeners, on the Speak Pipe. And now, at the end of the show, it's time for us to go to the Speak Pipe for the first time in a very long time. Have there been some messages that have been sort of languishing here for like 2 years? They're going to have zero relevance, or are they going to be entirely relevant because we've done bugger all? That's fine. Scott, who have we got? Who have we got speaking on our pipes?
We do have a few. Let's see if you could figure out who they are if they don't say already. Here's the first one.
Hello. Hey, what's up, fellas? This is Robbie from Tanuki Cider, calling from Santa Cruz, California. And just wanted to check in. Just had a quick question, guys. Are you guys ever going to record another show, or is this it? I mean, I've been following you a little bit. You have a couple kids, grow a mustache, open up a cider shop, and that's it? You done? What's going on? Someone give me a call back, please. Let me know what the deal is. All right. Thank you. And much love.
He sounds hard, doesn't he?
Terrifying.
It's quite passive aggressive, actually. I was like,
for such a nice
what
guy.
What the fuck are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
Huh? you fucking grow a mustache.
I'll fucking kill you.
I'll fucking kill you. Why'd you say that?
I didn't say it like that. That's not how I said it.
Well, listeners will disagree. To answer your question, Robbie, no.
No, definitely not. No point.
Remember, these these have been accumulated over a couple of years, so some of them might not have recognized that we're back. So
do you know what? He's a fucking legend. He's a legend.
Hey guys, Gemma Crow from Apple Per Day Cider here. Hope you're all doing well. I just wondered if there were any plans to reopen the Neutral Cider Hotel. I'm sure it's not just me missing your great content and witty banter. I hope to hear from you all soon. Lots of cider love from Yorkshire.
Oh, thanks, Gemma.
No.
Again? No, moving on. Sorry, Gemma. Bye.
That was like the sweetest message ever.
Fully booked.
Hello, Cider George here. Or should I say, Running George. Times be changing. As you can hear, sound effects inbound. Jingle jangle of all those running achievements. 10Ks, half marathons, you know the drill. I was just wondering if there was a certain podcast out there that had 3, I don't know, charming, charismatic, very handsome hosts that talked about cider that could lure me back to the orchard. Trying to think. No, there used to be one. Nah, they wouldn't. No. Can't think of one. Anyway, maybe one day. See ya.
I've heard that man record a voicemail by the side of the road, like he was going to jump in front of a car, and that's topped it. He has now created something more beautiful.
Cannot believe I missed that episode. Do you know what though? Actually, what was really good was that I got to listen to the episode that he did as a listener. Yeah. And enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like without and it honestly was one of my favorite episodes we did. It was
it's got one of my favorite moments ever of anything I've ever been a part of, which was, so what are you looking forward to? Yeah. And then I didn't really know anyone. Pretty sad actually.
It was so good. I had to pull over when that happened. And you had warned me. You were like, oh, don't, because I would always listen in the car. And it was just, yeah. Well,
Cider George.
So no.
But it's true that he has, well, I'm going to use the word abandoned cider, and he's gone to running instead. He from Instagram, he looks fit, and
Runner
healthy.
George, no?
Running George. But probably more sad and miserable.
Yeah,
I'd say.
well, I hope it's still sad and miserable.
Yeah.
Happy George
That's what
doesn't
happens
have
when you
quite a
lose
ring
sight
to
of
it.
mine.
Fuck that guy. Next.
Sorry, George.
Next, no. George is the answer. No.
This is the last one.
Hello, this is Tom Oliver from Oliver Cider and Perry. Procreation aside, I know you've all been very busy in the world of cider and the apple. While you have no doubt been working hard, Rhea has moved Cider Chat to over 400 episodes. Cider Voice is nearly at 40 episodes. And according to them, they've got at least a dozen listeners. Hopefully, the three of you can find the time to return with your own unique take and view on the world of cider and beyond. So please join the ranks of so many great power trios who have emerged from retirement, such as the Jam, Cream, Taste, and Budgie, to grace the airwaves yet again. I hear the hotel has had a deep clean and passed its environmental health, its food hygiene, and its lift inspections. Surely you must be unbolting those revolving doors and reopening for eager residents very soon.
There you go.
Do you know what? If there's someone whose products obviously get the most love, there's a reason for it. Tom Oliver's the man. So just the fact that he's obviously sent a voice message in and he wants us to help a bit, because the more the merrier in cider, eh? Mm-hmm. And I mean, what a time to be back. I haven't had a bad cider in a while. And Tom, we're the best. End of. So
yeah. It's only because you left us a speak pipe, Tom. It's the only reason we're back. No one else could have pulled me out of my bed.
That's it. It's all down to the Oliver.
When we're struggling to find a guest, check your inbox.
Knock, knock,
and
knock.
Buy a lamp.
Buy a lamp.
And for everybody else who is listening now, if you would like to have your speak pipe played on the show and to give us the opportunity to respond, please do leave away. Head to www.speakpipe.com/Neutral Cider Hotel. Well, there we go. That wraps things up for another episode. It's been a fab show. We're so grateful to have Ed Byrne in for some amazing conversation and for have just a good chinwag through comedy, TV, prints, and everything. So that's going to wrap things up here. Thank you so much for listening. Join us next time. Wassail to you all. Wassail! If you enjoy our podcast and want to help, please do spread the word about the Neutral Cider Hotel. Tell your friends about it and encourage them to listen. You can also follow, rate and review us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. 5-star reviews are incredibly appreciated and your reviews really do help us out. Also, please find and follow us on social media. We're at Neutral Cider Hotel on Instagram, Facebook, Threads and Reddit, and Neutral Cider Pod on X. As always, you can visit us on our website to listen online or share episodes at neutralciderhotel.net, not .com. Lastly, please reach out and leave us a voicemail with your questions or comments on the SpeakPipe. Yes, go to www.speakpipe.com/Neutral Cider Hotel.